peace, like the pulse of the Lincoln School in New York City. Peace means the beginning of a new world. It means love and friendship. It's the world's dream of dreams. Peace brings comfort and happiness. It brings bread to the hungry. It brings prosperity to the nations. Peace means the strong respect the weak. The great respect the small. The many respect the few. Peace is quiet and calm. It is rest. It is silence after a storm. Please join me in the chalice lighting words you see on the screen or in your order of service. Words by Martin Luther King Jr. Peace is not speak, but the peace in which they were authored, the struggle, the pain, so much that people were going through. We know that we cannot possibly understand the depth of misery that was being felt, but we can understand the passion and the joy that created this music. Let's appreciate that as we sing. Oh, I woke up this morning. Welcome down the deep back. We also welcome our town engaged people who are with us in the center as one. This is one of the things that really inspired to talk about not only Martin Luther King Jr. Day, but also racial relations within our country. And sort of where things stand in this world today. Diane is obviously a new member of our worship associates. At the state level, Diane chairs the elections committee of the Florida Conference of the NAACP. She's on the executive board of the NAACP of Collier County, and in addition, at spare time, Diane is the current president of Naples on the Gulf Kiwanis Club, and she works full time. Not sure how she does that, but if any of you don't know, this congregation will be marching in the Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade. We have been sort of holding numbers between 80 and 100 of our members who march on Martin Luther King morning. We are going to meet at 3rd Street and 12th Avenue tomorrow. What's that? It's in Rod. Church. So we see in church in addition to all those other things, the name is the organizer. So we'll follow her instructions. But we're going to gather around 10:30 there, and we'll get the word out specifically. We'll go through a couple of the songs that we're going to sing as we march, but it is always a joyful event. And how and Diane and Vincent and the whole team are helping make this event another fabulous year. So is everything ready for tomorrow?
Everything is in order. We're looking for everyone to come out. So please come out and support us with your love and solidarity. Because that is the name. The King wanted us to get together and he died. So it's for us to get together and show our solidarity.
So it's been 56 years since his assassination. Yes, it's years. Martin Luther King Jr. 95 years old. This past months. So, Diane, do you think, and I think I know the answer to this question, but do you think the work of Dr. King and others is still relevant in this world today?
Yes, the King's work remains relevant today. His commitment to non-violent protest, social justice, equality, and civil rights continues to inspire movements for justice issues such as racial discrimination, economic inequality, and social injustice persist. And his teachings have encouraged people to advocate for change through peaceful means.
And I think I also know the answer to this question. But has his dream come to fruition? Is what he was dreaming about, he talked about it true?
Well, Reverend Dr. King, his dream made some progress. It had confusion. We have ongoing racial disparities. There's systemic racism, economic inequality, and social injustices remain prevalent in education, healthcare, and employment. He believed that people should be judged by their character, not the color of their skin.
And we have a sort of we understand that in the course of those years since he died, created a myth around this personality. But what do you think was special about Dr. King?
Well, there he had special qualities. He was a visionary leader. He had a clear and powerful vision of a just society, which we still have not accomplished. His commitment to nonviolence, his emphasis on peaceful protest set him apart and helped mobilize for civil rights. He was a strategic organizer. He effectively organized the Montgomery bus boycott and the Selma to Montgomery marches.
And what about what's happening now, locally, nationally, say in the last 5 years with regards to the principles that Dr. King espoused?
Well, there's been a rise of social movements that have gained prominence in Black lives. So many of these organizations are advocating for racial justice, police reform, and then end to systemic racism, heightened awareness of inequality with healthcare disparities, community engagement. There's increased community organizing and activism of diverse demographics. Intersection of issues, current movements often emphasize the interconnectedness of racial, economic, and environmental justice is broadening the scope of activism in ways that align with Dr. King's holistic approach to justice.
Yeah, within our own movement, we have Black Lives and Unitarian Universalism, an organization within the Unitarian Universalism that pushing our movement forward on racial lines, but also deepening our understanding of the intersectionality of all justice issues. So the theme for this year's parade is we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. It urges us to keep the big picture in mind. How do you think we should do that together?
Well, I know most of us, we're disappointed with the outcomes of the election and what to expect for the next 4 years. Since we have already experienced 4 years of this individual, we are in a crisis. We need to achieve more goals and objectives that align with mission and vision. And here at Unitarian Universalist Congregation, we do have them. We need to view this challenge as an opportunity for us to grow. We need to surround ourselves with supportive individuals who share our values. And we need to stay informed and engage and get involved in local initiatives that align with our goals.
And Diane, where do you look for hope?
Well, right here. We all have different organizations that we belong to right here in this congregation. And we can look to each other for hope because we have relationships with each other. But we need to stay strong.
Many of you are active in organizations outside this institution, in the community, volunteering, any road that So it's pretty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know, is there, any of you guys have any questions that you want to throw out? I know you have an opportunity to talk to Diane after the service. But for all those things that have been shared, for those things that have been left unspoken in many hearts within this room, we offer our love and appreciation, presence, the love of this community. Please join me in the spirit of meditation. Spirit of life, creative force, be in us now and always as we work to heal this world, the only world we will ever know. We live in gratitude for the earth that sustains us, and in humility, knowing we are but a small part of the greater whole. May we be continually inspired by voices, past and present, urging us to honor our differences and forgive each other's shortcomings, understanding that hope lies only in an ever-broadening sense of community. May we find here the courage to face our fears, determination to weather difficult times, and the faith to know that peace and justice can prevail, even if they do not come within our own lifetime. Let's sit together and consider these things in silence. Let us hold those we hold close in our hearts. Welcome, Vincent Keys, President of the NAACP, Chair Reed.
2 years before the assassination, during a time of isolation and deep reflection, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. penned these words. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplet of racism, materialism, militarism are incapable of being conquered. A civilization can flounder as readily in the face of moral and spiritual bankruptcy as it can through financial bankruptcy. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is the thief of time. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residues of numerous civilizations, we are written the pathology pathetic words, it's too late. We still have a choice today. Nonviolence, coexistence, or violent co-annihilation. This may well be humankind's last chance to choose chaos or community. And of course,
is the overarching uncertainty about where we personally are going to land when all this is over. And by all this, I mean everything. All the things in the world and the country over which we feel we have no control. The great divides within the population, resurging racism and xenophobia, the wars in Ukraine, Middle East, and Sudan, the environment, the next administration. Because at least some of these things are existential in nature, feel truly life-threatening. And because we feel powerless, we have an uneasy tendency to shy away from confronting that. And because we're bombarded every day with some new crisis, whether real or hype, we have a tough time focusing on any one of these long enough to consider how we might best act. We also know, because many of these issues have been plaguing our nation for a long time, that all this will not be over anytime soon, if ever. And we're tired. But if I'm not mistaken, despite recent setbacks, somewhere deep inside, we hold a hope that there is a way through. It may be a tenuous hope, but it's there, tied inextricably to the life force that resides within each and every one of us. And also, perhaps, it is tied to the deepest values with which we identify, and that we don't see reflected as clearly as we might want out in the public arena. In a couple of articles I read over the past political year, the term inflection point was used to describe the opportunity or the threat that we face as a nation. Would we hold on to our democracy and push back the tide of authoritarianism? Or would enough people decide our 250-year experiment has failed and we need to turn to something different? In differential geometry, an inflection point is where the curve of a line or plane changes from one direction to another, from concave to convex. Mathematically, technically, it's the point of a curve where the curvature changes its sign. It's not a change you see immediately, but it's where the equation shifts and the arc begins to bend in a new direction. In language, inflection is the tone, the cadence in which we express something. The change of inflection can totally change the meaning or emotion of a sentence or phrase. Asked in a particular way, Martin Luther King Jr.'s question, where do we go from here, might suggest uncertainty and a loss of direction. Asking the question in another might suggest imaginative curiosity, possibly some excitement in assembling the necessary elements and working out the needed steps to create a new and positive direction. There were those, certainly at the time that Dr. King wrote Where Do We Go From Here in 1967, who felt that he had been outstripped by his times, that he had lost through the rise of the Black Power movement and other events command of the movement. But we know, understanding the man from the perspective of time, that Dr. King was seeking a new inflection point. He was not about to give up, but instead was ready to continue to push for lasting change, systemic change. In a speech given at Temple Israel in Hollywood, California, he said, "There is a creative force in this universe working to pull down the gigantic mountains of evil, a power that is able to make a way out of nowhere and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows." And then paraphrasing Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, he said, "Let us realize the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." In the book, Dr. King looked back over the dozen or so years since the Montgomery bus boycott and provided a sobering assessment of the state of race relations in the United States at the time. He noted that while some progress had been made, there was still a long way to go. He highlighted the economic disparities and social injustices that continued to plague the Black community. Now, 48 years later, we share a similar perspective. Progress has certainly been made on many fronts since 1967, but we can also see the erosion of many of those gains, most notably in the voting rights that Dr. King and others fought so hard to achieve. We still see significant disparities in income, wealth, and opportunity between white people and Black and brown people. Across many justice issues, right here in Florida and Collier County, there's a general sense that instead of moving forward, we've been losing ground. Sometimes it feels like the arc is bending away from justice and towards a white nationalist agenda bent on dismantling the democratic ideal towards which we have been striving. When Martin Luther King Jr. took a step away from the struggle in 1967 to gain some perspective, he saw in his own words that although the actions of the movement were bold and crowned with successes, they were substantially improvised and spontaneous. They attained the goals set for them, but carried the blemishes of our inexperience. He felt that not enough time had been spent learning how to develop power. Stumbling and groping through the wilderness, he wrote, must finally be replaced by a planned, organized, and ordered march. The future of the deep structural changes we seek will not be found in the decaying political machines. It lies in new alliances. Those words are as true today as they were then. From our perspective, while we can't lose sight of the importance of any one of the issues for which we have worked hard in the past and any successes we might claim, neither can we be limited any longer to our own favorite organizations or justice silos. We must recognize we share a common interest in holding on to a system of governance that, while not perfect, represents the best chance for the resolution of any of the issues we want to move forward. We must build and maintain alliances, communicating closely, sharing strategies, working together to change government, starting locally, by replacing politicians with leaders who hold the values shared by the majority of people across the political spectrum. We need to follow the wisdom of Dr. King, who wanted to broaden the movement by recognizing the plight of the workers and including others who have been marginalized. We need to understand how we have helped create the impression that the issues we care about are liberal issues and are not the societal issues that they truly are. What's needed is a more connected, more inclusive movement, a larger community in which a greater number of people identify with a common goal of rebuilding a thoughtful, fair, and just democracy for all. Started out by talking about the anxieties we all hold personally and our real concerns about what might happen to us in the near and distant future. So many things are up in the air. And the question lingers as to whether we will go into self-protection mode or continue to work for what we think is right, good. Whether we'll simply hope that things will go poorly for the forces of authoritarianism, or put ourselves out there for the values we espouse. And where do we go from here, chaos or community? Dr. King wrote about the idea that each and every one of us lives in two realms, the internal and the external. When we take the time to look deep within, we find that the realm of spiritual ends that can be expressed in many ways, in art and literature, in morals and music and religion, and in ethical life. He wrote that the external is that complex of devices, techniques, mechanisms, and instrumentalities by means of which we face the world. Our problem today, he wrote, is that we have allowed the internal to become lost in the external. We have allowed the means by which we live to outdistance the ends for which we live. So much of modern life can be summarized in that suggestive phrase of Thoreau, improved means to an unimproved end. King recognized this as a deep and haunting problem that continues to confront human beings. Greater material wealth and comforts create peril if there is not proportionate growth in the spirit. When the external of our nature subjugates the internal, as Dr. King put it, it is then we can get lost in our anxieties that are tied to those comforts. Action has always been the antidote to anxiety. Action fueled by a commitment to the values of love and justice, equity, and interdependence. It is for us to continue to call forth our better natures, to redouble our efforts, keep doing what we have been doing for others and for future generations, and to look also for better ways to build greater connections and an ever larger movement towards peace, justice, and love.
Comes from me. The offering we take each Sunday is an opportunity to reconnect and sleep, and to all people here. It is as much a ritual as singing together and lighting our child. It is a reminder of that form of love which we call generosity. Your financial contributions support our mission to grow intellectually and spiritually. Your generous support enables us to build greater peace, justice, and love in our congregation and in the world. For those online, truly grateful for the gifts received. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Dr. King this day was buoyed by what he saw as a broad global movement towards liberation. On this Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 2025, we worry that that tide has turned. For many, the world feels too complex, too harsh, too hard to manage. There's a scarcity mentality driving the shift towards an exclusionary nationalism here and abroad. If he were alive, Dr. King would see in this shift the same old evils he decried: racism, militarism, materialism. He would be preaching, as he often did, that one of the great historic problems is that the concepts of love and power are unfortunately contrasted as polar opposites. Love being identified with weakness, the resignation of power, and power being associated with a denial of love. But power, fully understood, he wrote, is the ability to achieve purpose. It is the strength required to bring about social, political, or economic changes. In this sense, power is not only desirable but necessary in order to implement the demands of love and justice. The time cannot be too late. We must believe that we are still in the midst of a struggle, that there are still things we can learn from Dr. King, that this great uncertainty we feel holds within it possibility, that we are that creative force that he was talking about. But there is still time to change the equation and continue the work of bending the arc towards justice. Let's rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, number 169, We Shall Overcome. Again, we remember the source of these songs.